All right, guys. So for chapters 6 through 8, I want to go through some important information for you from your notes that you took yesterday. So let's start with chapter 6, personal hygiene. We've talked about this in class a little bit, especially with labs, but basically some things to do and to not do. Be clean, be hands, hair, just your overall appearance. We talked a little bit yesterday about how if you go to a restaurant and you order and the person looks kind of grimy, like you're not going to want to eat the food that you ordered because that person has put a bad taste in your mouth for that restaurant, okay? Things not to do. Don't wear dirty clothing or dirty aprons. Make sure everything's clean. Make sure your hair is back and is under a hat or in a hairnet, those kind of things. The other thing I wanted to point out was taste testing. Taste testing is most certainly allowed in a restaurant because you don't know if something tastes good unless you taste it first, right? The thing I want to point out to you about taste testing is you have to use a single-use utensil. You can't use a utensil more than once. Now, that doesn't mean you have to use a plastic utensil. You can use a real fork or spoon, but you have to throw that in the sink to be washed every time. You can't go back in. That's double dipping, and we talked about how that's not sanitary at all. When it comes to reporting illnesses, employees it's so important to report illness, especially if they have vomiting or diarrhea, sore throat, fever, any combination of those. Jaundice is another one that's really important to know. That's when your skin is yellowing, and it is a sign of liver failure. It's actually one of the telltale signs of hepatitis A, which is a foodborne illness. It's a virus. There are, however, some symptoms that can restrict you, meaning you can still work at the restaurant, you just can't work with food. So you can take orders, you can be a busser that day, but you can't be in the back cooking. So things that would restrict you. If you were let's say you were just vomiting, and you had a note from your doctor that said that you were a pregnant woman, and you have morning sickness, that means you're restricted, okay? We know that you're not contagious. You can't catch pregnancy. I mean, I guess you can, but not like that. Excluding, on the other hand, is when you can't work at all. You have to go home, and you have to have a doctor's note saying that you're cleared to work before you can come back, okay? All right, moving on, proper hand washing. Just remember the steps. Water as hot as you can comfortably stand. The scrubbing process should take about 10 to 15 seconds, and the whole process should take about 20 seconds. Times to wash your hands, obviously before you start work, after you use the restroom, after you touch trash cans. When you're changing tasks is a good time to wash your hands too. If you have to change gloves, you need to wash your hands before you put a new pair on. All those are times to wash your hands plus more. Chapter 7 talks a lot about cleaning and sanitizing. They are not the same thing. Cleaning is when you're removing dirt from something. Sanitizing is when you are taking and demolishing germs, okay? So you can clean something with a dry paper towel, but you can't sanitize it unless you have some kind of chemical or heat to sanitize it, okay? The 5-step process, you definitely need to know those steps in order. The first step is to scrape food off of the plate or whatever it is you're washing. The second step is to wash. Third is to rinse. Fourth is to sanitize. And the fifth is to let it air dry. In a restaurant, you would definitely want to let something air dry, but we don't always have that luxury. So we do drying towels that are clean. Chemical sanitizers, you've got 3 that are the most popular. You've got quaternary ammonium, chlorine, and iodine. Okay, those you test the effectiveness of the sanitizer using a test strip, and those things they're just little slips of paper that are made to turn colors. And if it turns a certain color, that means it's good. If it doesn't turn that color, that means you need to either add more sanitizer or add more water to dilute it. Lastly, for Chapter 7, the safety data sheet. The thing I need you to know about a safety data sheet is that it has to be everybody in the restaurant needs to be able to access it. Okay, The manager is not the only person that should be able to access it. It should be ready and out there for everybody to see. Okay? All right, chapter 8 talks about pests, common pests. Just be aware of what an insect is, and know that there are differences between insects, mice, and reptiles, okay? But they are all common pests that do not need to be anywhere in a food service establishment. For preventing pests, basically blocking them from getting to the food, making sure things are closed, making sure there's no holes in the floor or the ceiling or the windows or anything like that so that a pest can get in the building, and things like that. And also using chemical poisons and things like that. Fly paper, like the sticky paper, does not count as a poison. It is not. You're not allowed to use that in a restaurant. If somebody were to walk in your restaurant, this has actually happened to me before. I've walked into like this dive bar restaurant type deal, and there's fly paper hanging from the ceiling. Not a good look. Just not a good look. Moving on, potable water. We've talked about that a little bit in class, I think. Potable water is water that is safe to drink. An air gap is the gap between, if you look over at the sink, you'll notice that the nozzle that the water comes out of in the sink, there's about a 4 to 5 inch gap between that and the actual sink well. That is an air gap, okay? And lastly, bathroom regulations. Bathroom regulations basically state that, like, you have to have a hand washing sink, you have to have at least one bathroom stall, and you have to have a door that closes on its own, okay? So that is pretty much it for chapters 6 through 8. I hope this helps you with your quiz. There will be another video that you can watch tomorrow for chapters 9 through 10. Thanks, guys.